This is getting ridiculous. Pangu is one of these controllers I've been waiting for so long ever since it was announced in China as Zeus 3. That makes me extremely happy to be finally able to get my hands on one. Let's get the disclaimers out first. The controller was sent to me by Beitong Pangu for a review, but all the opinions are mine and they haven't seen this video before you. Also a big shout out to Gadget Hyper for helping me with forwarding the controller to my country as Beitong couldn't at the moment. Let's start with unboxing. Okay, maybe not everything. I actually prefer the Chinese box where all the stuff are presented around the controller and the controller is already disassembled, but come on, it's just the box. We have our controller, obviously, 3 extra stick caps, a USB-C cable which I wouldn't say is best, I wish it was at least braided, an extra Nintendo Switch layout module, the dongle, and some manuals. There's also a module for the dock. Pangu uses the same dock as other controllers from the Kunpeng series. The dock isn't bad, but it's just mediocre at best. Aligning the controller on it is questionable, often requires some adjustments. The slot for the dongle is placed under the dock, which is nice, and has a little LED light to symbolize if the controller is already charged or not. For the compatibility, it uses those little modules that I mentioned before. Let's address the elephant in the room. The entire modularity. The modular parts are the grips, the rumble motors, the back button module, and the most interesting 4 modules on the front. I love that there's no need for unscrewing stuff like on the other controllers. You just press the button on the module and it pops off. It's so more convenient. Also, like on other controllers, we aren't limited to just swapping the layout from Xbox to PlayStation. We actually can put every module on any place we want. What does it mean in the practice? Well, we have the standard Xbox layout, the PlayStation layout, in which joysticks don't seem to close, which is very important. I'm thankful for that. The forgotten Wii U layout, which I actually fell in love in it. That's the main one I use for this controller. Why? For example, in games like Fall Guys, I don't have to adjust my fingers at all. I just place my 2 thumbs on these more comfortable positions and use all the face buttons using 4 back buttons. I find it so comfortable. Maybe a setup with more face buttons for fighting games or Sega Genesis. There's a little gap between these buttons, but I don't think it's that much of a problem. It's still nice that we can actually do that. Or maybe it's the controller layout. By the way, act like these are touchpads. Beitong actually has a plan for releasing touchpad modules, but we have no idea when it's gonna release. Or maybe for FPS games you can use, instead of a D-pad, force face buttons. Why? I mean, in games like that you don't use a D-pad like a D-pad, so a set of buttons instead of that might be a good idea. Or maybe this layout. Yeah, I have no idea what that is either, but I think you get the point. The possibilities of this controller are endless. What I really love, the controller, despite all the moving objects, modules and everything, when everything is attached, the controller actually doesn't make any noise or anything. It just feels like a normal controller. Nothing is moving on its own or anything. Everything is stiff. The shape of this controller kinda reminds me of Vader 4 Pro because of its bulkiness. The controller is pretty bulky in the handles, which I actually like. It feels pretty good. Will definitely please people with big hands even though I'm a small-handed person. The grips have exactly the same texture as Kunpeng 70, which feels very smooth and grippy. I really love that texture. The same texture can be found on the stick caps and on the triggers and bumpers. All the controller feels pretty grippy and nice. The only problem I have with ergonomics are these front grips, which are basically plain plastic. I really hate when companies just decide not to do anything about them and leave them plain like that. By the way, if you have sweeter hands, I really recommend buying the dark grips because the light grips just get super dirty over time and collect skin dust like crazy. With dark grips the problem is gone. Stick ups are concave, and I find kinda weird that Pangu, despite being the most modular controller out there, doesn't have one of the most basic features, which are replaceable stick ups. I guess it's just to make modules itself cheaper. With all the modules attached, the controller is 320 grams, which is expected, but unfortunately it might be too heavy for some people. Without the rumble motors, the controller weighs 260, which is much more acceptable, but still pretty average. Without the shoulder button attachment, the controller weight drops by 15 grams. I personally don't mind heavy controllers at all, but I know some people do, so it's always worth mentioning. Overall, I find Pangu to be really comfortable. Now let's go over all the features. There are 3 face button options. The micro switch one, which is the default option, the optical switch one, which I assume is pretty similar to the Kumpeng 71, faster but less tactile. There's also a silent membrane option. Unfortunately, I only have the micro switch, default one. I actually really like the base micro switch face button module. It has some pre-travel and just feels so tactile. It's among the better micro switch face buttons out there. By the way, I also like using the module as a little fidget toy. The bumpers are fine, just small, a bit clicky bumpers with some travel. I'm a big fan of those stickers. They just feel nice to use. Satisfying press. Pangu also have trigger locks, which are located above the back buttons. The trigger locks are just fine. They aren't anything special, but they feel pretty good. The travel on them is pretty small, but they don't feel as spammable. But despite that, they are just good enough. Before we start talking about the D-pad, just for your knowledge, I'm not a big fan of micro-switch D-pads, but I'll try to be as objective as possible. Pangu uses a floating D-pad with pretty silent micro switches. What I don't like about it is the lack of middle pivot, which can be seen by being able to press all 4 directions at once when pressing in the middle. As of the diagonals and input registering, it's pretty good, it's pretty fine. To be fair, I cannot say it's a bad D-pad, it's just fine. It's not anything special or anything crazy, but I don't think it's gonna fail you. There's also a cross module available, which is louder, but honestly I'm not a big fan of it. I definitely prefer the one which comes with the controller. Both D-pads have decent travel. There are 2 back button choices to choose from, either the Elite style paddles or the standard one that comes with the controller. I'm not a big fan of the module that comes with the controller. I mean, it's usable, but I feel like it would be much better if they just use normal sized paddles. In order to press them, you have to put your fingers in a pretty unnatural position. The Elite style paddles feel a bit off too, mostly because they are just placed too high. They are also placed too close to each other, so I can see big-handed people having problems with. While regular Elite style paddles align with my hand grip perfectly, those not really. There's also this little guy, which is shoulder button extender. It gives Pangu those 2 little extra bumpers, which just feel decent. I find it kinda funny that by the regular the controller comes with only 2 back paddles, but you can extend it to up to 6 extra buttons, kinda like a DLC controller. Pangu includes 4 rumble motors, 2 in the grips and 2 in the triggers. The motors in the grips are just regular rotor rumble modules, which feel pretty alright. There are also HD rumble modules announced, which I have no idea when will come, but it will definitely be a nice thing for all the Switch players. The trigger motors are pretty nice too and definitely fulfill the experience for the racing games. Time for some meat, the sticks. There are 3 module options to choose from. The standard included TMR joysticks, ALPS joysticks and capacitive joysticks. I only have the TMR joysticks, so I'll be only focusing on them. The sticks fortunately have pretty smooth fringed rings, avoiding any grinding. Let's check the tension now. 55, pretty standard. As you can see, Pangu doesn't have tension rings, which is pretty common for Beitong controllers and it's like kinda their signature feature. Maybe there will be modules including that, but we will see. I also hope Beitong will consider adding modules with, for example, GC30s Pros instead of just naming TMR is TMR and that's it. By the way, the control freak model you need is the PlayStation one. First of all, don't suggest by my score at all, I pretty suck at aiming. But overall, I think I expected worse. They are pretty good. Maybe not super good, but they are just fine. Nothing crazy like on GC30 Pro level, but perfectly usable for me. The latency of Pangu is about 5 milliseconds, which is a pretty good score. Of course, the most competitive players will have a bit of problems with it, but for all the other players it should be good enough and you shouldn't notice any problems with it. Circularity of Pangu is really good, look at those beautiful squares. The controller pulls at 1000 polling rate, but what I found to be super weird is when the shoulder button attachment is attached, the polling rate drops to only 700. Why? I have no idea, but it is definitely weird. The stick resolution is around 2000, which is a solid score. It can be calculated using the step resolution. I gotta admit that the Beitong control app is pretty neat. You can see every module as they are in real life and they react to everything you do. For example, watch. And then I swap. And everything is in the right order. Here we have some recommended configs, some AI functions, D-mode, and that pretty nice quick settings mapping. From here we can customize every module. Here we have some AI functions again. Here we can customize the triggers. Unfortunately, all we can do is set the dead zones. Here we can map all the buttons. Here we have some gyro options. Here we can adjust all the vibration settings alongside with impulse triggers. And here we can customize some lights. We also have some other functions. Overall, it's a really good app with almost everything that I can wish for. There's also a mobile app if you want to use one. In conclusion, Beitong Pangu is an amazing controller that was worth waiting for. I have gotten what I expected, a high quality roller with endless possibilities. What's even better, there's still a lot of different modules coming in the future, such as mentioned before touchpads or HD rumble motors. So the controller will stay alive for a long time. Because of all the modules, the repairability is super high, as in a lot of cases all you need to do is getting a new module. Obviously with the high possibilities comes a high price, which at the moment is 120 without even adding extra modules to the cost. That's a lot of money, but I think it's justified. However, I think there's one more test I should do. Do you like it? Oh, she does. Thank you all for watching and see ya in the next review.